Hey guys, welcome to my new beginner's guide. This is actually a redo of an old video. So when I started Hearthstone, the first day, just like I do with most games that I start, I looked up some videos and I was trying to find out, just some tips for beginners. And every single video I watched I didn't watch a shit ton of them, but out of three or four that I did watch, none of them were truly for beginners. Maybe people who have been playing like a month or less, but for anybody like me who likes to look up videos before they jump in or right after they jump into a game, they just weren't extremely helpful. So I decided one day after making, or maybe 2 or 3 days, I don't remember. It was in the first 3 days for sure, though, after starting this game, to make a beginner's guide. And that's what started me doing all these Hearthstone videos, actually. I intended it to only be like a one-time thing, but then I got really into the game. So now I'm still far from the best. I'm only competitive level 17. And, you know, I've only been playing the game for, I don't know, less than a month now. I've got somewhere like 300 wins, maybe a little over a month. I've got close to 400 wins, I believe. But anyways, I know a lot more about the game, and I feel like I know enough to make a decent beginner's guide. So for beginners, you'll hear a lot of stuff whenever you're watching videos about things, or even reading guides online about things like win conditions and different things, trading and aggro, control, all this different type of stuff. And if you're new to Hearthstone, or especially if you're new to strategy card games like this in general, you've never played anything like Gwent or Magic the Gathering, then you're not going to know anything about all that. So we'll start out with the very, very basics. There's really three types of decks in Hearthstone. You've got your aggro, which is all about flooding the board with a bunch of minions and just trying to wipe out the other hero as quick as possible. You've got your mid-range, which is just like you just play with the flow of game. You start out with low cost, build your way up, and you play the game out. And then you've got your control, which usually seek to do exactly that: control the board until they can make some big plays late in the game. Now, for beginners, I personally would recommend aggro, and anybody who's watched any of my videos will know that I don't like aggro decks, but they are good and they're easy. Mid-range is easy also, but I feel like that's the weakest out of the three. People are free to disagree with me there, but the control takes some play time to really learn how to control. There's a lot of different strategies in this game. You got 9 different heroes. Each one has many deck combos, and so it takes a while to play and learn everything that can happen. Also, this might end up being like a 2-part video. We'll see how long it gets. So in the very beginning, the first thing you're going to want to do is pick your hero. And it's not easy because it takes time. Now, obviously, you go through the tutorial. It lets you play all the different heroes, and you can get a feel for what you like and don't like. But until you build up your deck and start to learn different strategies, it's kind of hard. So there's a few different decks, or a few different heroes that I would recommend starting out with. Mage is obvious. That's the one it starts you out with, and she's got a lot of good cards that are low cost, cheap cards that are easy to get. But the problem is, to be really good with her, it does take some play time to learn how to really when to use all the spells, and how to control everything perfectly. And so I personally would recommend 1 out of 2 are my top picks. You got Warlock, which has some great aggro combos, and I see that all the way up in the legendary ranks. And then you've got Druid, who has some amazing aggro combos. So I'm going to go over those 2. Those aren't the only 2. There's also the latest expansion. It's called the Boomsday Project, and it's all about mechs. Mechs, I feel, are very easy for beginners. They're almost all mechs are low cost, easy to get out of the Boomsday Project because there's not a whole ton of cards, it doesn't seem, and they can be very powerful, especially against other beginners who don't know how to counter them. You can magnetize them, like join them together, make really powerful minions, and that's one of the first decks I played with. But once you start getting like up to rank close to rank 20, you'll start finding a lot of people who can counter them. A simple silence will kill, like, it destroys a mech setup. So I would personally go with Warlock or Druid, like I said. You can also go with Hunter. They have some good, like I said, the Hunter has a good mech deck that's cheap. Shaman has some good aggro decks. I personally don't like Shaman and wouldn't recommend it for beginners. And Paladin's the other good one I can think of. But I'm going to go over the Warlock and the Druid today. So the next thing you want to do is pick your theme. Like I said, if you're going to be control, aggro, or mid-range, I'm going to be going over aggro because it's pretty much the easiest to pick up and get going with. You can always change that later if you don't like it. And then you want to pick your minions, obviously, which we're going to go through. And then you want to understand your win condition. With aggro, it's very simple. You flood the board and you try to take out the enemy hero as quickly as possible before they can pull off any kind of crazy plays. Now, one thing that beginners need to understand, you almost always want to make trades. Almost always. And a lot of beginners don't do that. And what that means is, let's say the enemy has a 3/3 minion out, and you've got 2 1/1s. In that situation, it doesn't really make sense to go ahead and kill both of your minions by hitting that 3/3. He's still going to be alive, and then you're going to have no board presence. But let's say you've got a 2/1, or let's say you've got 2/2/2s. So technically, that's 4/4 compared to their 3/3. So a lot of beginners will just be like, well, I've kind of got the one up on them, and I'm just going to hit their hero. But the thing is, in Hearthstone, you never know what they're going to play next. They can do all kinds of stuff that involves powering it up, killing your minions so they keep theirs and you don't. So just take out their minions unless there's there's obviously going to be situations that you don't want to, but most of the time, just take them out, especially in aggro decks. So then let's start going over some different things. So first, I'm going to break down the Druid. You'll hear things about dust cost of different decks. You can craft. I'll show you real quick. You can craft cards. Every single time you open a pack, you get 5 cards out of it, and you've got guaranteed chance of getting one rare. Rares can be deconstructed. So like this is a common. You can disenchant it for 5. Rares can be disenchanted for 20. Epics can be disenchanted for 100, and legendaries can be disenchanted for 400. Now, most of the time, you don't want to disenchant your cards. Most people say to wait till you've got 2 of each copy, but the thing is, it doesn't take too long to know if a card's going to be worth it to you or not, and you can decraft it or disenchant it. Now, I made some mistakes of thinking I wouldn't need cards and wasted a bunch of dust disenchanting and then re-enchanting or creating something and then later figuring out I didn't like it. So don't go crazy with it, but just get the feel of it. I'm going to go over some very cheap decks to focus on. The Druid one is anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 dust, and the Warlock one is between 1,800 to 2,500 dust. Warlock you have to be a little bit more careful with because a lot of his cards involve pretty much hurting yourself. If you don't know what you're doing and you don't have the right cards, that can come back to bite you in the ass. But it's also great because you can draw cards, and there's just a lot of good plays, and it's a fun deck to play. But first we'll go over the Druid, and we'll go through some cards here, and I'll show you which ones I would recommend focusing on. So let's see here. We've got Naturalize is only going to cost 20. It does allow them to draw 2 cards, but I mean it costs 1 mana and you get to destroy any minion, and so that's a good card to have just for to control their board. And let's see here. This is very important for aggro druids. Lets you, if you don't have any board presence, you can summon a 3/2 Panther, but really you want to wait until you do have board presence and give all, so you got 4 or 5 minions and give all of them +1/+1. Sorry, I had to let my dog out. So I would focus on getting 2 of those, and I'll try to make a list, I guess. Think how I'll do it. I'll type up a list and try to screenshot it at the end of this video actually, or something, to show like the total of what you're going to want to focus on and how much dust it costs and all that stuff. So anyways, the next one is this. Again, it's only a common. It has 322 treants. Anyways, this deck is going to focus on getting a lot of those, and you'll see why. Craft 2 of those. The next thing, this, I mean, you don't have to get this till later on because it costs 100, but it's decent playing it because you get to discover a spell. Let's see here. Alright, sorry again, guys. Thought I had this put together a little bit better than I did, but it's a little bit harder once you actually get making the video. Okay, so the other one would be, let's see, this one. You want to get 2 of these as soon as possible because it summons 2 2s. And now, obviously, you won't have the dust. I would say to create either of these decks, it should only take like a week or so, maybe 2 weeks to get all the dust you need. When you start out, you can, do your quest, get your gold, open packs. You'll get some of the things you need out of those packs. You can disenchant things to get the dust. If you have a Samsung phone, especially, they give you 3 packs to start out, I believe. I know I got them, and I just started this month. My friend got them. He just started this month. So you'll get a lot of stuff early on to help you get cards. And so but you can fill out while you're waiting to get everything. You can fill it out with other things that just fit the theme. So let's see here, I would recommend this a little bit later on. I'm going to even put the cards that I'm recommending and in what order I would focus on getting them. But this later on, adapt all your minions. If you got a full board, that's a great card for only 100. And nothing else on that page. This is very important. You're going to want 2 of these. Anytime they manage to kill off a minion, you summon one right back in its place. This, if you go with the taunt version, the deck I'm going to recommend isn't necessarily. It's got a few taunt cards, but if you want to swap it out, taunt cards, this one's important. This is very important, but I would wait till later on because it's kind of, with this aggro, you're getting a lot of cards out of your hand, but sometimes they will build up. But it also costs 400, so that's why I'd wait for it. The other cards, this is just a upgraded version of the other one. It costs 2 more and only summons 1 more, and it also costs 400 to create, so I wouldn't worry about that. This is going to be very important. This is going to be one of the only control cards you have to wipe out their minions. Mostly you'll be using your minions for trades for that, but this is going to be the main thing here. Deal 5 damage to 1 minion or 2 to all. That's great. Only cost 100. Nourish, I would recommend later on. You can either gain 2 mana crystals if you need them, or more importantly, draw 3 cards. This you can go for later on, but I wouldn't worry about it too early. I think that's about it. The rest of them are going to be a lot of the cards between the Warlock and the Druid. I think what I'm going to do is focus just Druid this video, and then I'll do the Warlock the next video. But a lot of them are actually what's called neutral cards that would fit into both decks. So there is one other, and this is going to be like the most important, but obviously you have to get it after you've got all those things to summon them. But it has Rush, which means it can attack as soon as you play it, attack other minions, and it costs 1 less for each friendly treant, I guess they're called. I'm sorry guys, I don't know how to pronounce that word. But anyways, it costs 1 less for each one that's died, and as you guys have seen, we've got cards that summon 2 of them, cards that give you 3 to your hand. And so you should have had a bunch of them die and be able to play this for close to nothing. And so you're going to want to get 2 of those as soon as possible. Alright, so out of these cards, sorry, I hate whenever it says new. Okay, so this card is going to be very important. It's going to help you control, so it gets you a 2/2 out on the board, obviously. When I used to have lots of spells in my decks, and that kind of sucks because when you get only spells, and then you can't get any kind of board presence. And why not get minions that give you presence and can do the same things? This will help you control enemy minions a lot with how many minions you'll be how many minions you'll be playing, doing 1 damage each time. I would get 2 of those very quickly. This card isn't crazy important, but it's cheap and it's good to fill out for aggro decks. I would go ahead and make it. It gives all your minions +1 health, and it's a battle cry, so it happens immediately. Tar Creeper is common. Is a common card, so he only costs 40, and he fits well into almost any deck, just because he only costs 3, and he's essentially a 3/5 on your opponent's turn. I would get Vicious Fledgling, just because he fits well into almost any deck as well. And I mean, you don't have to get him immediately, and until you play against him or with him, it's hard to understand just how good he can be. I've literally, kid you not, pretty much single-handedly had this card win me multiple games. Very, very good. Serum Knight Chingang's another great minion that fits into almost any deck. So he summons a copy of himself, and so with like the Knife Juggler or whatever he's called, for example, that's going to do 2 damage instead of 1 because you're technically summoning 2 minions. Plus they have to take out 2 different minions, so it protects your other minions. Great card to get it early on. Alright, so I originally had 2 of these listed, and I was wondering why I didn't see this played in way more aggro decks, and just decks in general, and why it was a common. But I misread it. I thought it said gain +1/+1 for each minion that died, and I'm like, there's a legendary that has a similar effect. So, but even this turn, if you've got to use your minions to clear out a whole bunch of, board, gotta make trades like I was talking about. This can be a great card. I wouldn't focus on it super early, or I wouldn't get 2 of them, but since it only costs 40, you can still get it. Or if you don't care, you can just fill it out with whatever else. I would recommend getting at least 1 of these, maybe even 2, when you've got a bunch of minions out, and especially if you've got a taunt or 2 in there as well. This is great. He gives +3 at the end of your turn, which is just, that can make a huge difference, especially if they can't take him out quickly. I would get at least 1 of these. I see almost every aggro deck I ever go against has 1 of these. It doesn't seem like a huge deal, but +2/+2 can make a ton of difference. So I just noticed this card. He's not going to be listed on the list, but his effect is pretty good. So, and he's common, so you can go ahead and grab him, or if you just happen to get him out of a pack or something. And finally, this. So this you can wait for a while to get because he pretty much does the same thing as Mulch Muncher. Well, not the same thing, but he's a very, very similar card, except for he costs 400, so I would focus on Mulch first. But this costs 1 less for each minion either you or they have on the field or on the board. And so if you've got a bunch of minions out, obviously he's not going to cost much at all, but he is 400, but he's very important for both this and the Warlock. Or if not this, there's also this one. This one's for 1 less each in your hand. Now with this deck, most of the cards are really cheap. Most of the time you won't have a ton of cards in your hand, and so I would recommend Sea Giant for both of these, but if you happen to get a Mountain Giant, he can work as well. Alright guys, so here's the list. Couple of things to go over. This is the order that I would recommend trying to get them in. Obviously, you're going to have to work around it a little bit. Fill it out with other things while you build it that fit the theme. Don't just throw a bunch of random stuff together. So, let's see. The Wicked Skeleton I put 2, and it's way up there because that's before I read. It was this turn. I would probably move that down towards the bottom and make it to where it's only 1 of them. Spellbreaker I didn't mention, but he's a silence minion. You want to save it. Don't waste the silence earlier than you need to. You don't really need to silence super early minions, except for in certain cases. Mainly try to silence any kind of crazy powerful minion they get. Let's see. Spreading Plague I missed. That's a great card whenever they out control you, which is going to be rare in this, which is why it's kind of far down. It's a lot better for the druid that actually like tries to build up a late game, but it's still useful. Boisterous Bard, I don't think I mentioned, but it gives 1 health to all other minions. And Tending Tauren is the other one I missed. It's kind of like another Power of the Wild, except for he's also a minion. Gives all your other minions +1/+1. So your focus with this deck is going to be getting all your treants out as quickly as possible. And then once you've got complete control of the board, either powering them up, giving them Death Rattle to resummon themselves, and then getting your Mulch Munchers and your Sea Giants out. And so, yeah, guys, sorry. I thought I had this put together a lot better once I actually got started making the video. It was a little bit more disorganized than I thought, so sorry if the video is awkward. Hopefully the next one will be a little bit better with Warlock. Also, if you're new, my tag is Cody Burr, just like my YouTube name. You can add me. I will happily play with you, give you some tips, pointers, whatever. I will also try to build these decks myself so I can show how to use them. And if you have anything to add to it, if you're someone who's been playing for a while, you have any suggestions to improve it, I'm all for that kind of stuff. But other than that, this video is getting long, so I'm going to stop it here. I'll make the Warlock one soon and talk about a few other things that you could possibly do as well. I hope you guys enjoyed. Also, this is still part of the giveaway. Any subscribers get 1 entry, and then likes and comments get another for 3 free Google Play $10 gift cards. One last thing, and I'll probably mention this in the beginning of the next video too. If you can afford it, the $5 starter pack is well worth it. $5 is nothing to most people. Sorry guys. $5 is not a lot of money. And it gives you 10 packs, which normally I think that packs are like $1.50 a piece or close to it, and a guaranteed legendary on top of that. So that alone will get you a bunch of the minions you need or the dust you need to craft them. So well worth it. Now that final note, I will end it, and I will see you guys back next time.